Yeah, that's a rubbish intro. Should we try that again? Yes. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing really well. Today we're going to be taking a look at what I read in January and what I felt about those books that I read. First off, a quick shout out Goodreads. So last year I used Goodreads solely to keep a track of what I was reading. I don't really use it for the social media aspect, so I don't really use it to get recommendations from anyone. I pretty much was just using it to log what books I'd read and my ratings of them. But I have been thinking about how I've been reading, and this year I would like to be a little bit less passive in it. So I'm going to try and switch over to Storygraph, which is a smaller company. It's got some more interesting features in my opinions. It kind of delves into some more data, it looks cool basically. So yeah, graphs of what genres and kind of things you're reading and the pace of stuff that you enjoy. So yeah, I'm going to try out Storygraph this year, and I'm also, I don't have it here, which was daft, I should have done, but whatever. I've also started primary school style, writing down in a little notebook what I think about everything I'm reading. I don't know what it is about just having a bit more of a tactile experience with it. I don't know, it just makes me feel more connected to it. It sounds really, really corny. Whatever, I'm enjoying it. So Storygraph and keeping a journal, that is pretty much what I'm trying this year, and we will see if I actually stick to that. I'll let you know in probably a couple of months' time when I have inevitably stopped doing the journaling, but I'm going to try. In January I read 5 books, and it was a real mixed bag, to be honest. A couple of them have been not recommended to me, but I'd seen them. They've been targeted at me by Waterstones mostly, and I was sucked in by the amazing cover art, but a couple of them really flopped for me, and a few of them did really well, if that makes sense. So the first thing I read I actually listened to, and that is Oranges and Lemons by Richard Holiday. I have mentioned him in a video before. If you like James Herbert, definitely check out Richard. But even if you don't like James Herbert, because I actually really don't enjoy James Herbert, I still enjoy Richard's writing. He's got quite a kind of a traditional, grey-toned, kind of British, crimey, thrillery thing going on. Kind of gives me Life on Mars vibes. If you're British, then I suppose you'll know what I mean. If you're not, then sorry. Oranges and Lemons is a thrillery, crime-y, almost environmental thriller, if that's a genre, or I just made that up, whatever. It's very cool. It's completely free to listen to. I will leave the link in the description. It's only around an hour or an hour and a half long on YouTube, and you should absolutely go check it out. And I rated that story 4.5 stars. Now onto a book that I did not enjoy quite so much, but I felt like it was really hyped. Not so much on BookTube or on Instagram, but it was targeted at me, and I very much felt like the marketing was horror and escape room and haunted mansion-y housey vibes, and the cover absolutely says that. It's got the cool sprayed edges. I absolutely love the neon green. Whoever did the cover design for this did an absolutely amazing job. However, my love for it sort of ended there. I didn't think it was that bad, but it wasn't a horror. There wasn't an ounce of suspense in this thing. I did not care what happened to the characters. There was lots of head hopping, lots of different characters, and it was one of those okay, I'm getting all of these different feelings from these different characters and different storylines, so obviously they're going to tie together at some point, but I just didn't care how they tied together. I didn't care about the conclusion. Most of the characters were awful, minus one probably. It didn't do it for me. It wasn't horror, and I think I've seen last year a couple of books that sort of fell prey to this, so I think this was marketed as horror because it looks like horror. And if it looks like horror and it's got blood on it, then surely it is horror, right? But no, I don't think this is. I think this is contemporary literary with elements of horror, but even the contemporary elements, it was just quite dull, and there was no tension, there was no suspense, lots of very on the nose bits, which I didn't really vibe with. And a couple of books last year sort of fell prey to this too. So Room Under Lambs, Leave the World Behind, I thought personally fell prey to that. So that was marketed at me as a thriller. I adored that book, but it was not a thriller. It was a lot more than just a straight thriller. But yeah, I didn't like this, and I really wanted to. and I'm quite reluctant to get rid of it because I don't normally buy hardbacks, and I did buy this one, and it does still look cool, and I like the green. I don't know, it just wasn't that great. So I would give this one 3 stars. The next book that I read in January has very quickly launched itself to the top of some of my favourite books ever, and that is We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. It's quite short, you know, it's only like 150 pages or whatever, but I absolutely devoured this thing. I adored Shirley Jackson's writing, I loved the characters, it was eerie, it was dark, it was twisted, it was kind of gothic Americana, it was cool, and now I want to own and read everything Shirley Jackson's ever done, and I can't believe I've never read any of her stuff before. If you haven't read this, then read it. Also, interestingly, I don't know how well you're going to see this because the cover is super dark, but the building on the front here, that photograph is actually of a building in the town where I live, which is how I found out about the book. So yeah, cool fact. I love it. Go get it. 5 stars, obviously. The next book I read in January, just to take you on this roller coaster yet again, I can't show it to you because I read it and I disliked it so much I immediately got rid of it. It's at the charity shop where I hope someone will enjoy it, but I'm not that convinced. Just need to double check what it was even called. And that was a novella by Cassandra Khaw called Nothing But Blackened Teeth. The cover of this thing is amazing. I'll put an image here, but the cover is incredible. The synopsis online, incredible. Horror, set in Japan. Got lots of like Japanese folklore and horror stories and all sorts of like urban legend stuff sewn into it. It sounds amazing. It sounds so up my street. I hated it. I love a dislikable character as much as the next person, but the characters in this book were so vapid and one-dimensional. There was no character development in my opinion. Again, I just didn't care about what happened to the characters. The ending really felt like the author tried to have one of those like gotcha moments, but it just fell so flat for me. I did not enjoy it at all. And unfortunately, the Japanese elements that were definitely present were so ham-fisted, and like as much as I would love to learn about Japanese folklore and horror, I was hoping that I would learn something in that book about it, and I didn't, because the author just name-dropped ghosts and mythical beings without actually telling me what they were. So I spent half of the novel Googling what most of the stuff was, and I didn't enjoy that, to be honest. Both Nothing But Blackened Teeth and Reprieve, for me, felt like style over substance. They looked amazing, they felt like they should have been amazing, and then the second you gave them more than half an hour of your time, the whole lot just fell apart. I was so annoyed because I really, really wanted to like that one. That definitely gets a 2 stars from me. I'm actually quite a big DNFer, so the fact that I finished either Reprieve or Nothing But Blackened Teeth is quite unusual. Reprieve's actually quite chunky, and I did finish it, surprisingly. Nothing But Blackened Teeth is super short, so I didn't mind pushing through it, but definitely I don't recommend them. I've just realised I started this video by saying I had 5 books that I read in January, but I actually read 6, which is really good for me. Normally I read like 3, so really good reading month. Less good writing month, but that's a story for another time. That's a problem for February, Hannah. The next book I read, which was also a little bit of a flop for me, unfortunately, was Earthsea by Ursula Guin. I really just don't think that fantasy is for me. I feel like I tried quite hard last year to kind of force myself to read some fantasy, and I just don't like it. And I keep trying to make myself read it because everyone else raves about it and they love it and there's such a big following of it. And I simply don't understand it. Not actually that I strongly disliked this book. I think I would still give it 3 stars. I think my problem with it is stylistic. Ursula Le Guin's writing, probably also because it's pretty old, I personally felt was very removed from the action. So similarly to Reprieve, this didn't have an ounce of suspense or tension for me. I wasn't particularly intrigued by any of it because there just wasn't that tension. It feels very, very passive. It feels like you're being told the story from such a distance to the story, if that makes sense, that you're not in the action. Therefore, I just didn't feel part of what I was reading. A lot of the time I felt like I was reading a synopsis rather than the actual story, if that makes sense. And I think that that's a little bit of a thing with like traditional high fantasy anyway. I find it quite dense, so if I'm not put in the action, I don't feel invested in the story, and that's what happened with this book for me. So something I want to try this year is to find an angle into fantasy that I actually like, and I think I found my way in, but that's for the February video. So unfortunately, Earthsea by Ursula Guin, I would probably give it a 3-star, but I would recommend it if you are really into fantasy. And I quite enjoy modern classics, so, you know, tying those two things together. I didn't hate it. I won't be rereading it. It will probably go to a charity shop. But yeah, it was alright. It was better than the film. So there's that. And the last book, book number 6, not book number 5, that I read in January, has also somehow launched itself into my list of favourite books. I absolutely adored this book. It was so sweet and so wholesome and so thought-provoking and easy to read, and I just loved it. I just can't. I've recommended it to pretty much everyone, but I refuse to lend it out just in case I don't get it back. And that is The Cat Who Saved Books, and it's by Sasuke Natsukawa. It's translated, it's Japanese. I absolutely loved it. I can see it as like an anime when I was reading it. It's basically about a boy whose granddad dies, and he lives with his granddad. He's brought up by his granddad, and his granddad owned a bookshop which has been left to the boy. And one day a cat turns up and tells the boy that he has to go with the cat to help the cat save books. Hence The Cat Who Saved Books. It was actually really, really sweet and thought-provoking, and there was quite a lot in there about like interesting timing for me, because I was making a video about reading classics, and how I personally find a lot of classics really dense and hard to understand. But there's a part in this book that talks about sometimes you have to work hard at understanding something to really get it and really enjoy it. Yeah, and it made me appreciate the classics I had tried to read quite a lot more, because sometimes you need that challenge, and sometimes you enjoy that challenge. You just have to be in the right mindset to read it. Yeah, so I thoroughly enjoyed this book. Definitely a 5-star. I will never lend it out to anyone ever. However, I can definitely see myself rereading it, and it was just so sweet. I loved it. So those are the 6 books I read in January. A real mixed bag for me. I'm actually kind of proud of myself, low-key, for actually finishing Reprieve, because it's pretty chunky, and last year me probably just would have DNF'd it, but I'm glad that I powered through. Maybe that shows that I'm changing a little bit my approach to reading. I don't know, I'll probably DNF some stuff anyway. But yeah, I will also be doing a video on what I plan to read in February. So stick around for that. That'll be around at some point. But that's that for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to my channel for more book and writing related videos. And I will see you next time with another one. Bye!